Hello and welcome back to Seaside Garage. It's time to get this car back on the road for the second time in this week. I now got a new gasket. I got the head skimmed. More on that later. I cleaned a bit of the stuff up, just the worst of the grid. I am in a hurry. This is my daily. I needed to run ASAP. So I haven't polished anything like that, and it's not really my thing either. But I did remove the starter, and I have actually disassembled that and cleaned all the contacts and so on. So I really hope that it will work. Otherwise I might have to get another starter. When doing that, I noticed that the cables are also really bad on this one. The battery positive cable is really bad. The exciter wire, I think it's called, the one that goes from the ignition barrel and to the actual starter, is very brittle. I'm going to change all those just to give it the biggest chance of actually working reliable. The video you are currently watching will be filmed over a couple of weeks almost. I ordered a gasket that stated that it would fit this model, not this exact model, but the turbo models, and it's the same block. It's just slightly different in compression ratio. And I wasn't really worried about that point because of what I will explain a little bit later on the cylinder head. But it also stated that it would fit the diesel engines, which I noticed after it arrived, which is a bit weird because the diesel engines are solid block. The petrol versions are wet liner versions. That means that the cylinder is actually removable on the petrol ones and not on the diesel ones. I don't know if that makes any difference when it comes to gaskets, but there will be protrusion on a wet liner engine. There won't be on not wet liner engines. If that makes a difference, I don't know. But what does make a difference is that a diesel engine got the pre-chamber, so that makes the gasket a little bit different in shape. I don't know if that would matter much either, but then it turned out that the diesel version doesn't cover the coolant outlet on the left side. So I could put it on, all the balls would fit, but it would just be leaking badly. So it would, of course, it wouldn't work. So I had to order another one, and it was difficult to find because I wouldn't want to take any chances. So I ordered a gasket exactly for the GTI model. It was a bit expensive, but it got here pretty quickly, and it just arrived today, and today is Thursday, the 14th of December. And if you remember on the previous video, I was talking about the heater not being very effective. I think this has been the problem all along. I think the leak has gotten worse and worse and worse, and the circulation in the cylinder head and all that has been really poor, so it hasn't really gotten into the heater matrix either. I have off camera checked that it's not blocked in there. It's not blocked. There is a passage in there. I have been cleaning the coolant passages in the engine block because they were really cruddy. This car has been neglected when it comes to coolant changes, that's for sure. I have actually put in some citric acid to loosen it up, all the stuff. And also, you will notice that this engine block is actually pretty scarred because of lack of maintenance. That around there is corrosion because the rust inhibitant stuff that is in coolant has not worked anymore because of coolant hasn't been changed very frequently. That is the reason why you should change coolant every, I think it's second or fourth year, I can't remember, but very often people never change the coolant before it's needed because of a leak or something like that. This could give issues, but in my experience it will be okay because it is just in the edge of the sealant, and also because it's a wet liner engine, the cylinders is slightly higher than the deck, so it will seal just fine in the pistons area at least. I could have some issues with coolant seepage out here, but I don't think so. I will give it a little bit of sealant stuff that I have used before with great success around those areas, and also the gasket itself got some extra protection in those areas. But that is the reason why you should change your coolant. But over here, we got the cylinder head. I have not been working on this because I don't have the machines. I could have sanded it on a piece of glass, and I have done that before, but not this time. I sent this to my good friends at the local engine shop. They measured it, and it turned out to be really warped. Not a big surprise. You might remember that I tried to measure it in the previous video. but it was warped quite a lot. He had to take 0.4 millimeters off to make it seal again. And when I put my ruler on now, like I did last time, it is completely flush all the way over. It doesn't even make sense to try to put a feeler gauge underneath it because it's completely flat now. That's great. They also checked the valves for air tightness, and it turned out that they got a little measuring thing, and the needle didn't even move on 3 of the cylinders on the exhaust sides. The seats were so bad that it wouldn't even hold enough pressure to register on the gauge. So they have fixed all of the valves, and that's great. This could actually end up being one of the positive things about this head gasket blowing, because most likely within a couple of weeks, a month or something like that, maybe if I took the car on a long trip at highway speeds, I would very likely start to burn one of the exhaust valves, and then it would be a head-off job anyway. So I think this cylinder head would have come off anyway, even if the head gasket didn't blow this time. So we're actually fixing 2 problems, which is nice. Also, they mentioned at the engine shop that they don't know the car, they don't know how it ran before this, but they told me that it had to be running terribly with these valves. And actually, to be honest, I think it was running pretty nicely. But one thing is that the idle, I got a comment on the video about the slightly low oil pressure. Someone commented that the idle seemed quite low. A very low idle will also kick on the oil light on a slightly worn engine at least. So maybe there is no oil pressure issue on this engine. Maybe the idle was just a little bit too low. So what I'm going to do is to put the correct oil grade in once again, because I need to do a flush anyway, and see if the problem comes back. Because right now I was running 20W50 oil, which is great oil for an engine like this, but we got freezing temperatures from time to time, and it's very thick oil when it's cold. If the light comes back on, then I will have to put in some thicker oil once again. But I think this will raise the idle by itself because it's more tight. It will develop more power all through the power band, but also at the idle stage. This engine will be making more power now that the exhaust valves are actually sealing. It won't burn any valves, and also compression will be higher now that the head has been skimmed quite a lot. Hopefully it won't matter too much. I could put in a thicker gasket, but I'm putting in 1.5 millimeters of gasket, and I think it will be just fine. But it will develop a little bit more power, which is just fine because it's a 2.5 with 120 horsepower. So it's not a lot, so a little bit more power will be all right. And the water pump has also gotten a treatment with some citric acid and some cleaning. It also had a little bath in my sonic cleaner. It's not perfect, but it will be just fine. There's nothing wrong with the impellers, and there's nothing wrong with the bearings. So I'm not going to change this because it's an expensive piece of kit. I had a hard time finding the correct gaskets for all this, so I have been making my own gaskets while I was waiting. One problem is that I haven't been able to find exhaust gaskets. So I'm going to reuse the old gaskets with a bit of exhaust sealer on them and just hope it will seal. So what I'm going to do now is to put everything back, start to reassemble this cylinder head. But before doing that, I got a problem. But one of the pin balls was snapped. 2 of them actually were snapped. So we're going to attempt to take those out. This one snapped all the way out here, so I got something to grab it with. So I'm going to just try my luck to put 2 nuts on it and see if I can spin it out. There we go. It's coming out just fine. The other one though snapped all the way down there. And I actually already started this, but what I did is I started with my punch to make a hole right in the middle like this. Boom. And then I took a drill and started to drill it. This is where I'm at now. And I actually drilled it all the way through, which means that I can attempt with this one that spins into the hole. And it's reverse threaded also. When you do this, do not use too much force, because if you snap that piece of hardened metal in there, it will be way worse. But this is working, I think. Oh yeah. Perfect. We got it. Then it's just a matter of putting everything else back together now that the studs are no longer a problem, which is nice. One gasket. Now I am getting ready to install the cylinder head on the new gasket. Oh, it's going to be nice. Before doing that, I'm just going to show you what I did down here at the starter. I have changed all the wiring because it was so brittle and so badly, yeah, it was just really, really bad. So I'm going to change all that. Still need to do some stuff up here, but hopefully that will give the starter a bit more power, and hopefully it will fix my problem with the non-engaging starter from time to time. I don't have a heat shield for it, so that could be part of the problem actually. But yeah, nothing I can do about that right now. But I'm going to install the cylinder head now. Of course I have cleaned everything up. Everything is dry and nice. I did apply a little bit of that sealant around the areas that was bad, but now it should be ready. And here comes the cylinder head. I'm always nervous about this part of it because I don't want to scratch the underneath of it. So I want to put it down pretty straight onto the dowels. There we go, it's on. And of course the threads has been cleaned as well. A little bit of oil has been added to the threads. Everything should be just fine. I hope. Most likely would have been a bit easier to do this by disassembling everything and putting it on one thing at a time, but there is some washers in here, some plastic washers that I'm not changing because I didn't have any, and I really don't want to disturb them more than I have to. Now it's time to tighten it up in stages. Stage 1 is 29 Newton meters, and I got the sequence up there. Now this is always exciting, especially if you watched a lot of my videos, because it's not always going smoothly. But let's go ahead and hope that it will today. There we go, that's the first stage. All 17 bolts are tightened up to 29 Newton meters. I'm just going to take a cup of coffee before doing the final stages, just to give it the best, to settle in and settle my own nerves. Let's do the last stage. It's up to 61 Newton meters. Let's do it. Yeah, there we go. Woo! Oh, that's nice. This is where I'm gonna wrap this video up. The head is now back on. I need to adjust the valves. I will do that in the next video. Off camera, I have changed the belts. If you have a CX, you will know that that is not something you just easily do. To change these belts, you'll have to take that shaft off, but that's not enough. You also have to take that pulley off. The pulley won't be able to come out, but it will be able to be slanted down there, so I can put in the belts. It took a while. I have also reattached the exhaust. As you can see, the wires, I have tucked them a little bit. I have tucked them away down there, but they are close to that exhaust, and it's not ideal that I don't have a heat shield for this, so that is maybe something I am going to attempt to find somewhere. But yeah, other than that, it's getting there. I was hoping to actually start this car up tonight, but there's so many small things and I don't want to mess anything up. So this will be part 1 of the head gasket swap on the Citroen CX. See you on the next one.